Wondering when you need to do a tax return? Well, watch on. As a business accountant, my team and I spend all day long helping business owners on their journey. And as you'd imagine, right at the beginning of that journey, both in our day jobs and also online, we get asked the question a lot, when should I complete a tax return? And people worry about it, particularly every January where they see the revenue advertising about do your tax return, don't let it be late, we're going to fine you if you do. People worry about it. So I think it's a good time to recap. Now, whether you're watching this video in a January or whether you're watching it further down the line, this one is about self-employed people and when they need to think about filing that tax return. And also I'm going to recap briefly on why you might need to register, or certainly when the revenue think you need to register. Now, before I get into it, if you do like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button and the bell below. You should get notified whenever we release more videos just like this one. So let's recap about what the revenues say first about registration. And again, this is purely from a self-employed perspective. There can be other reasons why you might need to do a tax return depending on your earnings levels, whether you've got any other income. The actual tax law behind me says there's only a couple of reasons really that you would need to do a tax return. One, the revenue asks you to do one, you've got to do it. Or secondly, you have tax to tell the revenue about. And what the revenue have then done is they've created some guidance where they kind of know when you would need to tell them. And they say, look, in these scenarios, we would want a tax return. And those scenarios from a self-employed perspective are, if your business is earning more than £1,000 a year, then they want to know. And that's generally to do with the reason £1,000 relevant is if you look at our other videos on the trading allowance, you'll see why that's relevant. So over £1,000, they want to know. You might also need to register for a tax return if you need to prove that you're self-employed. So some benefits require proof of self-employment, and your registration number they give you is a big part of that. So you might need to do that. And the other one is if you need to pay something called Class 2 national insurance. I don't want to go too deep in that in this video, but that helps things like state pension and the like. And if you've got no other income and you're starting off your self-employed business, that's going to be really important for you. So in order to do that, you need to be in the system as self-employed. And oddly, it's one of the biggest problems we see with people who have got tax returns and have become self-employed is they haven't sorted out this Class 2 national insurance issue, but that's actually for another video. So if any of those circumstances apply, then the revenues say, we want you to register for a tax return. And of course, all this is best done online through their online services. There are workarounds, but I just don't think you want to be doing those if you absolutely have to. You want to be online. The data is far easier to sort of access, and a lot of the things you might need to complete tax returns, whether you're doing it solo or whether you're working with an accountant, is accessible through those online services. So make sure to do that online where you can. Now, in terms of when your first tax return is due, let's quickly recap on how the tax years work. So the tax years, weirdly in the UK and nearly everywhere else in the world is kind of calendar year, but here we are 6th of April one year to the 5th of April the next year. So when you need to do your first tax return depends on effectively when you said and told the revenues you started that business. So let's take an example. Let's say new year, new you, new business, you registered your business in the 1st of January 2025. You're in the 24-25 tax year. So you started it after the 6th of April 24, but before the 5th of April 25. So you're in that 24-25 tax year. So that means you're going to report those kind of 3 months of income almost on the 24-25 tax return. And that tax return, they give you a big long time. So the tax year goes around to the 5th of April 25. And then they say, cool, you can let us have your online digital tax return by the 31st of January 26. So you've got quite a time before you've actually got to do it. And that's usually when you would pay your tax. When you've been in the tax system for more than a year, there are circumstances where not only do you pay the tax that's due on that year, they might ask you for something called payments on account in that January as well. Now, those payments on account are basically tax up front. So easiest way to explain it, and I'll ask that in 2 chunks. They'll ask for half that money up front in the January with the year's tax bill, so that can be quite a lot of money to find, and then in the following July they'll also ask you. So if you had to pay some tax on the 31st of January 25, you'd also, and they wanted payments on account, you'd also have to pay in the July 25 as well. Now, there are certain criteria that force these payments on account to be made, and that's normally where you've earned over £1,000 of tax. So you've got £1,000 plus tax bill, and there's not quite enough deducted at source. Sometimes if you've got like a lot of full-time income or something like that, they might not ask for them. There is a threshold, but I won't go into that too deep in this video, but just think, look, if I've got £1,000 plus tax bill, it's likely I'm gonna have to pay up front as well. So doing your tax return early is always gonna be a benefit, because that big window that you've got in this example between the 5th of April, well, well, really the 6th of April 25 and 31st of January 26 to submit that return. If you did it anywhere before then, you're going to know in advance what the tax bill is. And they don't ask for it early. You've still got the deadline of the 31st of Jan 26 to do it. You just got more time to know and plan about it. So always do it early. So in that example, that was a short year. It's worth saying though, that although you'd only include in that example where we're saying you started and reported to revenue that you started your business on the 1st of January 25, you'd have almost a 3-month little bit of self-employment to report. It still asks, that actual tax return still asks for your entire year's income from the 6th of April to the 5th of April 25 for the rest of your income. So like if you've got employed job, if you've got rental income, anything like that goes into the same return. So you still have to report the full year on everything else, just this tiny bit for your trading. So the next year, when you tip over to the 6th of April 25, and that's going to go all the way around to the 5th of April 26, so we're getting quite ahead of ourselves, then you're then going to have that full year's worth of traded income to report. I mean, unless you ceased, but generally in the next year, if you're carrying on your business throughout the whole year, you're going to have the full 12 months and it goes on there. So you might think, Dan, you've thrown a load of different dates and things at me there. I'm still confused. So do I need to do a tax return in January or not? The answer will be, if the revenue have issued you one, you're going to need to do it. If you're not sure, log on to your online account. But ultimately, if you've told them that you started that business before the 5th of April 24, then they're going to have likely issued you a tax return to complete, whether you did the £1,000 thing or not. I know we spoke about saying you didn't have to register until you have £1,000 or more, but if you had registered, they will just take the date you registered, and that's quite important. We see every year, we see people with fines. They're like, well, I did register, but I didn't think I had to submit one because I earned under £1,000. You still do. If you're in the system, they're very, very likely, almost always, they're going to issue you a tax return. So do check and make sure that it's there. So if you started your business after the 6th of April 24, you're in the next tax year. You're in the 24-25 tax year that's going to run all the way around to the 5th of April 25. And you don't have to do your tax return till the 31st of January 2026, or at least that's the deadline for submission. I'd always encourage you to do it well before then. So if you started your business after the 6th of April 24 and haven't actually told them about it yet at all, you haven't registered, done anything and thought, I need to sort this out, you've actually got till the end of October 25 to tell them and register for a tax return. Your deadline's still going to end up being the same. You're still very likely digitally to have to register and submit online for the 31st of January 26, but you've got plenty of time. So don't panic, just get registered where appropriate and go from there. Now, it's worth saying finally that on occasion, if you do muck all this up and you've registered at the wrong time or something weird's happened, the revenue will often give you a different filing deadline for a late return depending on when they knew about it. So there are caveats to this video, but these are just general guidelines of when normally things would be due. Hopefully that's helped you out. Please do share it with anybody that needs to know this information, and I'll see you in the next one.